Hi everyone. Today we're diving into one of the most powerful lifestyle-based health movements in the world, the Bluezones project, and how they help prevent the world's leading cause of death, heart disease. Heart disease kills more people globally in the US than any other cause, killing roughly 695,000 people a year on average in the United States of America. But here's the good news. In the Blue Zones communities, people are not only living longer, but they're also living better. And heart disease is far less common. So what's their secret? It's not really high tech medicine or expensive treatment, it's how they live every single day. So in this podcast, I'm going to talk about eating, moving, connection, and life, and explore the core habits that make the difference between Blue Zones and the rest of the world. And we'll break down the difference. And we'll break down as well how natural movement like walking and gardening helps keep the heart strong, the plant based meals that nourish the body and reduce plaque buildup, the deep social ties that protect emotional and heart health, and the sense of purpose and stress relief that strategies that make a real impact. So, this guide, brought to you by me, your host, Nitin Mali, is your starting point to adopting a simple, science based, and natural Blue Zones type of lifestyle that can significantly reduce your risk of heart disease and help live a longer and better life in general, as we aim to do with Blue Zones. So let's get started. So now let's talk about the Blue Zones, some of the healthiest places on the earth. Blue Zones are areas where people tend to live the longest and be the healthiest. In these regions, it's common for people to live into their 90s or above 100. And not in the hospital, but actually walking, gardening, cooking, and spending time with family. So they're really doing what they want to do. And they're not just living long lives, they're also living really good lives. So they're able to be active into their 90s, 80s, even over 100 too. And blue zones are actually defined as basically the home to people who live till 100 and beyond. And there's five locations, which I'll discuss in the next slide. And unlike many parts of the world, these people in the blue zones will age with less illnesses and they'll not suffer from heart attacks, cancer, and strokes the way that the rest of the world does, and actually reduce heart attack risk by 80% on average compared to the world. And their long lives aren't because of fancy hospitals or medicine, it's because of how they're living on average every single day. They'll have much lower rates of heart disease, stroke, and cancer, and that's because of their everyday habits like movement, eating healthy, and being close with friends and family. And naturally, that'll protect their health and their bodies, which will stay strong, and hearts will obviously be healthy as well. And they also have nine main habits called the Power Nine, which as well are basically like the habits that they use to live long and healthy lives, such as moving naturally throughout the day, eating mostly plants, having a strong sense of purpose, slowing down and managing stress, staying close to family and friends. And there's also other habits as well with blue zones, and they're also discussed in my other podcasts as well besides this one. And so people in blue zones will live with purpose, eat well, move every day, and connect socially, which are the four main pillars that they have, like specifically, and they don't really go to the gym. Instead, they'll walk a lot, garden, and do chores by hand. So they emphasize consistent activity, and they don't eat a lot of sugar or processed foods. They're never really going to be lonely as well. They'll spend time with people who support and care for them. And also, these habits will be able to protect their hearts and brains. For example, the sense of purpose, which is knowing why someone wakes up every day, can cut risk of dying from heart disease or stroke significantly, and purpose alone actually has been proven to add over 7 years to a lifespan. And it's not just purpose itself, it's everything they do, from how they eat, how they move, how they relax. Every little choice they do will help them stay healthy. So they sort of are able to micromanage their own health through these healthy habits. And altogether, the habits will create a life that leads to much longer and much healthier lives with lower rates of heart disease, significantly lower, 80% to be exact. So, before we get going, I just wanted to say something, which was the five main blue zones of the world. So, there's five: Okinawa, Japan; Nicoya, Costa Rica; Sardinia, Italy; and Ikaria, Greece; and Loma Linda, California. So, first, let's start off with the first one, where everything originated from. First off was Okinawa, Japan, where the people there have a sense of purpose, which will reduce stress and as a result, reduce heart disease rates, and also people will be significantly happier, and that also limits the rate of heart disease there. And their diets are rich in sweet potatoes, tofu, and seaweed, and they have low intensity movement like gardening. So they have a lower risk of eating high cholesterol foods, and which will, as a result, prevent heart blockages. And also, their low intensity movement like gardening keeps healthy blood flow and prevents heart disease. In Nicoya, Costa Rica, they typically will have hard physical work like gardening and other types of things like labor and natural calcium rich water. And they eat black beans, rice, corn tortillas, which are heart healthy due to their low cholesterol levels, and strong family bonds as well occur within this community, which will reduce stress level and as a result keep heart disease at a lower risk. And also the hard physical work that they'll typically go through, like gardening, will also reduce their heart disease risk due to healthy blood flow. And next up is Sardinia, Italy, where they'll have an active shepherd lifestyle, and as a result, lots of walking, which prevents heart disease significantly. And Mediterranean diet, so low amounts of saturated fat, and as a result, that prevents heart disease. And they have close family and community support. Next off is Ikaria, Greece, which will have daily naps, which has been proven to keep their blood pressure under control, and that as a result can prevent heart disease and hypertension. And next off is their plant heavy diet with wild greens and herbs and minimal stress and long and strong social life. So basically, they have a healthy diet and also they'll reduce stress levels. And next off is Loma Linda, California, a faith based community where they have basically good amounts of rest and purpose through the Seventh Day Adventist, which I'll cover in a later slide. And also, they have a vegetarian diet, which lowers cholesterol and inflammation. And they also will have which will also not consume alcohol or they don't smoke as well. And they have strong peer support, which is able to keep their heart disease risks much lower. So, quick thing before we actually get into everything, let's take a step back and look at the big picture. So, why are we even talking about blue zones in the first place? This is because heart disease is the number one killer in the United States of America, and it's also the most preventable. So, first off, we have to understand that heart disease claims roughly around 695,000 American lives every single year, which is one in every five deaths. The most common types of deaths occur from heart disease, and this is double the deaths from cancer, which is the second leading cause of death in America. But here's a sad part: many of these deaths actually are preventable from heart disease. And the reason is because heart disease typically, for the most part, according to a cardiologist I spoke to, is not genetic. It's actually lifestyle based. It results from diet, inactivity, stress, smoking, loneliness, etc., which means that it's not only preventable, but it's also essential to prevent it. So, how does Blue Zones offer a solution? So these communities are where people have basically naturally figured out how to live with protecting their heart without really trying. So here's some habits that they do. So they move naturally every single day. Blue Zone residents walk, garden, cook, and do chores, not for exercise, but because movement is typically built into their lives. Studies show that actually 30 minutes of walking a day lowers risk of heart disease by 20% or more. Gardening as well is a common type of activity in the blue zones, which also lowers stress and gets people outside more and increases vitamin D levels and cardiac health without high impact strain. So people can do it more and more often. And they also have anti inflammatory diets with legumes, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and healthy fats. And they'll eat very little red meat and plot processed foods, so that'll reduce their cholesterol levels and inflammation levels, which will prevent heart disease. Next off, eggs and meat are also eaten very sparingly as well, like I previously said. So that will be healthier for their blood vessels and prevent blockages due to less cholesterol. And family and social ties as well is important, since another heart saving habit from them is strong relationships. In the Blue Zones regions, people will live in multi generational homes or close knit communities, which will often check on each other, eat together, and share life's burdens. So, this kind of deep connection is linked to lower levels of cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and basically, less cortisol means less strain on the heart due to less blood pressure, and that'll cause less risk of stroke and heart attacks as well. And next off is purpose, finally. And people in blue zones live with clear purpose. Okinawans call it ikigai, and Nikoyans call it plan de vida. Knowing why you get up in the morning has been shown to add around 7 years to life and reduce cardiovascular disease dramatically. And they also will reduce stress through prayers, naps, reflection, and rest in a very healthy way. So that'll help keep their inflammation and blood pressure under control. So this is really important since it shows that we can actually go on to prevent heart disease and other such diseases through the use of lifestyle rather than treatment. So start with the most common type of habit seen across all blue zones: natural movement. This strategy may seem simple, but it's one of the most powerful tools we can have against preventing heart disease. So in Blue Zones, people don't really just go to gyms. They're basically like every single day will have physical activity, whether they're climbing hills, biking to the market, tending to gardens, doing house chores. They'll have movement into the fabric of their daily lives. And this is because the layout of their towns, often hilly or walkable, means that physical activity happens organically. In contrast to our car dependent lifestyles, these individuals move out of the actual need to move as well, not sort of a desire to move. Of course, they do indeed want to, however, they also need to do it as well. So, low intensity as well that they have is that they'll typically have pretty much lower or moderate intensity activity like walking, squatting, lifting, gardening, which will be more sustainable that they can do over the long term, and also instead of intense workouts. So, this is more just sustainable as a workout. And they'll be able through this type of movement to improve blood circulation, lower blood pressure, consistently exercise, manage their blood sugar levels, and reduce inflammation. And it's basically about consistency is the main goal here. So even their homes are actually designed for movement. Instead of elevators and minimal walking, stairs are common and gardens are part of their space. So this means that they'll be moving even during everyday tasks like harvesting herbs, cooking meals, or cleaning. And gardening also is their cardio, and this activity will have squatting, which engages the legs and improve hip mobility, so their joints will be healthier. Lifting and bending, which will keep their muscles healthier, so they'll be able to actually move around more. And that'll provide more time outdoors, which will reduce cortisol and boost mood, so that as a result will put less strain on the arteries due to less blood pressure. And gardening has been even called a perfect activity for lifelong health by public health experts because it combines movement, purpose, and peace. And also, people in these regions will often walk well over 10,000 steps per day just as part of their normal routines. And research shows that consistently walking more than 8 to 10,000 steps can consistently and very significantly reduce cardiovascular disease rates by up to even 50%. And also, in total, blue zones with all their habits have reduced heart disease by around 80%. So we really see how important physical activity is here since that's like 50% already. So people also will enjoy moving around as well. So that's really critical. So it'll push them to move around even more than they do. So basically, the theme from here is to learn to like move around a lot more, and that helps with blue zones. So, what makes the Blue Zones diet effective is not just the ingredients themselves, but the philosophy and culture surrounding food. So, meals in these regions will be slow, social, intentional. People will cook their own food, buy it locally, grow it, and eat with family members and eat together regularly. And this mealtime structure will reinforce community bonds and encourage mindful eating, which will play a crucial role in digestion, hormonal regulation, appetite control. When people eat slowly and attentively, they feel naturally a desire to eat less, feel more satisfied, and reduce metabolic stress on the body. And these meals aren't rushed or eaten in isolation. They're rituals rooted in tradition and love, which support both their physical and emotional well being. Furthermore, blue zone populations avoid the hidden dangers of modern processed diets, such as added sugars, preservatives, sodium, and ultra processed oil. And their foods actually can drive down sys- inflammation rates. And also, the food that they eat at the blue zones will reduce blood pressure, and reduce triglycerides and also not impair vascular elasticity. And as a result, they will be able to prevent heart attacks. And as well with the blue zones is that it's important to know that they are able to nourish their bodies without depleting them. And the diet doesn't really just to reduce disease risk, it'll build resilience. And the steady intake of vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients will fortify the body's cells, slow down the aging process, and provide against oxidative damage. And as a result, that'll be healthier for blood vessels and prevent heart disease, such as, for example, we have polyphenols in olive oil and legumes, which will act as natural anti inflammatories, while potassium from greens and sweet potatoes can help maintain electrolyte balance and even cardiac rhythm. So, even moderate intake of red wine in some regions, of course, for 21 and over, will be consumed slowly and in social settings, which has actually been proven to not be heart like unhealthy for the heart, but actually healthy for the heart in some occasions, and this is due to resveratrol and other compounds that will enhance vascular function and HDL inhibition and control. And also LDL, they'll not have as much LDL, my mistake. not HDL. HDL is an okay one. So, moreover, the way they actually eat will have a cumulative lifelong effect. So, people in blue zones won't just adopt this diet as a short term fix, they have it long term since it's sort of kind of push towards them. That's what they have. And as a result, they're less likely to develop chronic inflammation, arterial damage, or insulin resistance that begins in midlife for so many people in industrialized countries like the United States. And hearts are protected over decades, and so the risk of cardiac events is very low, unlike areas like the US where poor dietary habits contribute to hundreds of thousands of preventable deaths each year. So in essence, the Blue Zones diet is a return to real food grown in the earth, cooked at home, and shared with others without any of the stuff that we have in our homes itself, like processed food. And so also, besides the sort of increase the longevity of someone's life, it's also the increased quality that comes out of blue zones foods as well. So that's really important to consider. And they also prevent eating sugars and types of things like cholesterol, so that'll prevent problems that can occur within their arteries, showing positive impacts of blue zone diets. So another thing in blue zones that's really important to consider is stress and purpose. So in blue zones, first off with stress, people face stress just like everyone else. They'll have deadlines, hardships, and responsibilities. But what sets them apart is their built in ability to handle stress in healthy and intentional ways. Chronic stress is one of the most dangerous and unrecognized contributors to heart disease. It raises cortisol levels, inflames blood vessels, increases blood pressure, and over time accelerates plaque buildup in the arteries, all of which make the heart more vulnerable to disease. In modern societies, people often will respond to stress by distraction, overworking, or unhealthy coping mechanisms like overeating or smoking even. But in blue zones cultures, stress management is woven into daily life, whether through prayer, midday naps, deep breathing, or quiet reflection. People will carve out deliberate movements to reset their minds and calm their bodies. These aren't luxury practices, they're normal practices and respected. Each community has their own approach. In Ikaria, Greece, people rest every afternoon. Sardinia, elders gather and laugh with neighbors daily. In Okinawa, Japan, residents draw on the concept of ikigai, which is reason for being, which will help them basically kind of stop with their stress. And speaking about ikigai and purpose, this idea of purpose will play a really important role in longevity. Purpose isn't just about career goals or succeeding, it's about feeling needed, useful, and connected. These are bigger than oneself. In blue zones, people have clear roles within families and communities, even into old ages. Grandparents take care of grandchildren, community members cook together, garden together, and support each other. These relationships and roles generate motivation and emotional stability, giving people structure and a sense of belonging. Scientific studies have shown that people with a strong sense of purpose live up to 7 years longer than those without one, and have dramatically lower risk of heart attack and stroke. This is because purpose will help calm and regulate the autonomic nervous system, which will reduce stress response, stabilize BP levels, and allows the heart to function more efficiently over time. And in contrast to the high speed, hyper competitive culture seen in many industrialized nations, people in blue zone, unlike people in blue zone, basically, these people in blue zone live with intention, unlike the hyper speed, hyper competitive people in industrialized nations. And these people don't have urgency in the blue zones. They don't rush from one task to another. They'll have basically slower pace and focusing on balance, fulfillment, and presence, which will allow their bodies to stay in more rest and repair types of mechanisms. And as a result, that'll be able to protect their body. And basically, stress and purpose, when like they manage them well, are two sides of the same coin. One will be healthy for the heart, and one will sort of fuel the heart with meaning and vitality. Together, they'll have a powerful shield that Blue Zone residents will be able to use to sort of live longer, bring joy to them, clarity, and emotional peace. And in the end, managing stress and living with purpose isn't just about feeling better, it's about staying alive longer and thriving while doing it. So, another strategy. In all five blue zones, one of the most consistent and powerful contributors to long life is social connection. Not just the presence of people, but deep, meaningful relationships that provide emotional, physiological, and even physical support throughout life. People in these communities are embedded in strong networks of family, friends, neighbors, and community groups. They'll regularly share meals, go on group walks, celebrate together, and even participate in daily conversations. And these rituals will create a culture where nobody feels unforgotten, unseen, or unsupported. In Okinawa, for instance, people will form lifelong circles of friends called moais, which are intentionally formed social groups that meet regularly to check in, offer help, share wisdom, and grow old together. These bonds will provide a lifeline of emotional support, which will reduce stress and ease loneliness, and buffers individuals from mental and physical effects of isolation, which has been shown to be dangerous to the heart as smoking or obesity. When people feel emotionally safe and connected, they're more likely to maintain healthy habits, such as cooking nutritious meals, going for daily walks, and showing up for checkups. These are held accountable by the people and encouraged around them, and they feel cared about. And social connection also serves as biological stress relief. When people feel supported, their bodies will have more oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, and less cortisol, the main stress hormone. And this hormonal shift helps lower blood pressure, improve heart rate variability, and reduce inflammation, which will protect against chronic wear that accelerates heart disease when there is worn out blood vessels. And Blue Zone's connection isn't just an extra thing, it's a foundation of life. It's prioritized just like food or sleep. Elders remain active and respected, not isolated. Children will grow surrounded by family and friends. Neighbors will help one another without being asked. These layers will form a community that'll sort of have a protective emotional infrastructure that will allow people to thrive, especially in times of grief, illness, or hardship. In fact, large epidemiological studies have found strong social relationships are 50% more likely to increase survival rates for heart disease, while loneliness is now considered a public health crisis in many parts of the world, especially industrialized nations like America. And ultimately, what Blue Zones teach us is that being deeply connected to others isn't just a feeling that feels good, it's a form of preventative medicine. And the risk of heart disease supports mental health and, as a result, impacts heart disease risk to be lower. And it also extends life expectancy, and also more importantly, it adds joy, meaning, and purpose to everyone's life in moments. So if we want to live longer lives with less heart disease risk, another thing to emphasize is social connections and really care about those. So one other thing I wanted to talk about was case studies here with Blue Zone values and how they've improved heart disease risk as reduced it. And the Adventist case study is one of the examples, like I pointed out in one of my previous slides. So the Adventist case study is one of the most well-known and robust investigations between lifestyle and chronic disease prevention, conducted among Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California, the only blue zones in the United States. Researchers discovered that Adventists who had plant-based diets had a 30% lower risk of heart disease compared to the general United States population. And their diet was a Mediterranean diet with fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, whole grains. And we can really see is that this actually is practiced in an industrialized setting. And these people also will go on to avoid smoking, alcohol, prioritize rest and a bath, and will live supportive and health focused lifestyles. And as a result, that's what caused the 30% lower risk of heart disease, and also the death rate once it was significantly lower as well. And as a result, they'll sort of live much healthier lives, lower stress levels, reduce rates of hypertension and diabetes, and as a result, that will be good for preventing heart disease here, as we can see, and along with the longevity as well. And next up is from the actual WHO global data. So they actually recognize blue zones since they said beyond one city or population, the World Health Organization has examined global trends in blue zone regions in regions that have parallel blue zone regions to have significantly lower rates of heart attack and stroke, up to 80% fewer than countries with sedentary, processed food heavy cultures. And the protective lifestyle in the regions isn't based on high tech medicine or supplements, it's more on daily natural movement like walking or gardening, plant based meals made at home, strong social bonds, lower stress levels, and a sense of purpose. So, from Sardinian shepherds who walk uphill every day to Okinawan elders, everyone will find meaning and sort of have healthier lifestyles and be more mobile. And as a result, that significantly reduces cardiovascular disease to be nearly 80% less as a result. So, we really see that the way people live is very correlated to their heart disease risk through these studies. So, in conclusion, what the Blue Zones teach us is profoundly simple. Heart disease prevention doesn't require complex technology, extensive treatment, or strict routine. It's more the daily life and consistent intentional habits that anyone can begin. Anywhere in the world, the people who live in Blue Zones aren't superhuman, they simply live in a way that supports their natural health and bodies and hearts. They walk every day not because they count steps, but because walking is part of their routines. They eat mainly plants, fresh, whole, and home cooked food because it's cultural, affordable, and delicious. They'll manage stress with traditions of prayer, rest, and reflection, and protect their mental health through deep relationship, shared meals, and strong family and community ties, along with living with purpose, which will cause them to have healthier hearts as a result. And these aren't just observations, they are scientifically backed as well, as we see by the WHO and the Loma Linda case study that I showed you. And as a result, they reduce heart disease risk by nearly 80%. So you really see what we need to do is adopt these blue zone values. And they're really not that hard to add, as we can sort of go on to start with small steps and actually just go on to build off of those, like taking a walk after dinner, adding beans to meals, calling a loved one, or carving out moments to breathe and reflect. What's important to consider is that that simple step to start those blue zones life choices, and that's sort of able to, as a result, reduce the risk of heart disease for many of the people that follow these values, as we see 80% reduction. So, in conclusion, preventing heart disease isn't really about being perfect. It's about choosing to live in a way that aligns with how our bodies are designed to thrive. The Blue Zones will give us a real world model of what's possible, not just a longer life, but a better life and less heart disease. And if we walk a little bit more, stress a little less, eat a little bit cleaner, and stay meaningfully connected, as a result, we can prevent a lot of heart disease in our communities and individuals. So, everyone, thank you for watching our podcast. My name is Tamali at the World Connect Initiative, and feel free to ask any questions down below in the comments or message me through any of my contact information, email World Connection Initiative at gmail.com, Facebook account Nitin Molly or World Connect Initiative. And thank you, and signing off.